Hi, thank you for watching a new video blog. Today from Riga, Latvia. So I am here in a former Soviet Republic called Latvia. A small country in the north of Europe, in the Baltic area of Europe. Now behind me is a typical building that was built in the Soviet era. Very communistic, this brutal building style, very ugly. But I thought it was funny to have this message that the United States is disappearing in front of a former Soviet building. Bit of irony, maybe. But it is a serious message that I have today. And it is the reality that the United States is dying. The birth rates in the United States are below replacement levels. So that is a fact. It means that the United States population is decreasing and in a fast rate. The birth rates are about 1.66. So that is a lot lower than the replacement birth rate. So it does mean that not even the population stays the same, but it means that the population is quickly decreasing. So now there's about 250 million people in the United States. This might be in the next 10 or 15 years going lower to maybe 300. And this will continue to decrease. And I know many people will say, well, that's a great thing. We have overpopulation. Yeah, let's have fewer people. But first of all, overpopulation is a myth. There is no overpopulation in nature because there is an abundance of foods and space to live. You really need to go in the Zika trillions of people to maybe reach a point where you can say, well, will be now quite a lot, but that's not happening. You know this story that the whole world population, if they would have like a certain amount of square meters to live on, they would fit in a country like Ireland or something. Don't remember exactly what it was, but you know this story. And this is true. So there is no overpopulation. So that's not an argument. And secondly, people act as, oh, but it's just individual choice. It's if you want to have a large family, it's your decision. I shouldn't be bothered to have no children, to be single, to you know, not have a family. Yeah, that's not true. Sorry, it's not the case. Well, of course, nobody can force you to have a family or to be married or to commit or whatever, have 4 or 5 children. That's true. Nobody can and should force you. But then you should also accept the consequences of that. Because you can clearly see already what is happening in the United States because of these low birth rates. It is disrupting the whole country, the whole economy. Because you might say, well, it's my individual choice, I don't want it, I want to enjoy life, I want to have multiple partners, but I don't want to commit, I want to have my own life, I'm already busy enough with my own things, I want to have my hobbies, I want to pick up a hobby every year. But then again, you are talking from a place of luxury, still built upon a stable society. Meaning that the previous generation, they had large families. Well, larger. 4 or 5 children was normal in the 1950s. It started to change in the 1960s. So we were always talking about baby boomers, but they came from an era where there were still large Catholic families, where Protestantism was also instructing people to build strong family ties, to respect marriage, to not divorce. And in the 60s this quickly changed. They broke down the families, and we can see now afterwards that it leads to first smaller families and now no families. So it has an effect. So we're still building, this is the last few years that we can still rely on the baby boomers, on their generation, because they are a large part of the United States. Sorry, I'm talking we, but of course I'm not from the United States. But they are still, and like many Western countries, they're still living off of the work of these baby boomers. And they are a gigantic group. They are a large part of the country, of the population. And when they start to die, then suddenly the population will drop very quickly. Because this generation, they were born in the 50s and 60s, they had very few children, 2 or 3, and now we're at the point that 1 or 2 is even like the norm, or 0. So meaning that now it looks like, oh, it's not that bad to have United States with these low numbers. I can be whoever I want to be and be free and etc. But you're living off of the success of a traditional civilization, a more traditional civilization, because civilization is never really traditional or natural. Natural is living in nature, and you know my story. But it derives all from nature, and every generation loses a little bit more tradition. So you can say like, oh, you know, I choose to live like this, but expect that in 10 years you have it much harder than now. That you probably won't have a job, that you won't have a retirement, that you'll be living off the streets. This will become the norm, and you can clearly already see this happening in the United States. It's just the beginning. You have seen in Los Angeles all the tents on the Santa Monica on the beach, downtown LA, full with tents. And these are not only drug addicts. These are normal people that cannot pay their rent anymore. And you might say like, oh, but these are failures, these are individual failures, they failed in life. That's also not the case. Because now you can see, also you from the United States, you can see that inflation is eating into your spending. Inflation is so high that it starts to also become impossible for middle class people to pay the rent, have the basic needs covered. This all has to do, of course, with the birth rates. Everything that I'm talking about, inflation, this all comes down to plummeting birth rates. And it's really good to understand this. You might think like, oh no, it's a war, or it's this, or it's the printing of money, it is this, maybe because of the immigrants, or absolutely not. It has all to do with birth rates that are too low to sustain a healthy civilization. And again, I don't care too much, because I am not looking to live in a civilization. I want to be self-sustaining, self-sufficient, off-grid, living natural, close to nature, because I understand that this is not maintainable. We cannot maintain a civilization when the birth rates are so low, and that is fighting tradition. You can clearly see also that the birth rates are now dangerously low. If you drive around in the United States, you will find many ghost cities. Cities that are just abandoned. Nobody's living there. And sometimes even the houses are still relatively okay. They're not because they're not abandoned because they were bad or whatever. They're abandoned because there is nothing to do there anymore. Cities are dying out because there is nobody to replace And you might say like, no, it has to do with certain areas of labor, like Detroit, had the car industry, etc. But why is the car industry suffering? Name one of the largest target groups that the car industry always had. Of course, families. Families need cars. Families always need bigger cars, newer cars. They use cars a lot. And if a family has one car, they get 5 children. These 5 children all will need new cars. Seems pretty obvious to me. But when people retire, one thing is certain, that they mostly don't buy new cars. All the retirees that I know are very frugal and they want to maintain their car. They don't want to constantly change. They basically want to keep their car until they pass away. So to say that Detroit is just the car industry that was suffering, no, the car industry was suffering because of declining birth rates. Because if there's nobody to sell a car to, because people aren't having 4 or 5 children anymore, there's no need to create these cars. So that's why they shut down. Of course they will tell you, oh, this, but they are hiding because this is a behind the scenes factor. I don't think that many economists and other cultural people that criticize culture, I don't think that they're really aware of this. They never thought about it because it's a natural factor. They always calculate materialistic factors, economy, overseas situations in the overseas area, but they never take in account that something as simple, as natural as birth rates mean a devastating effect on, or have a big importance on, your civilization. So you see ghost towns in the United States. They're increasing. You see them more and more. If you want to see them, I have this YouTuber for you. Check it out. He films these abandoned cities. And this is what's happening. People move away, so it means there's no overpopulation, it's underpopulation, because these areas get emptier and emptier. And they all flock to the cities because they think, oh, somehow there is more work. And one thing that is available in cities are services like hospitals and schools and all these things. They are not anymore available in these abandoned areas because no population means no services. Because why would you have a service if there is barely any population left? And because people are flocking to the city, it seems like there is a housing crisis, the demand is high in house, but it's just desperation. Because these are the leftover people from all these areas that are abandoned. And again, if you go back to Detroit, so one day the low birth rates hit the demand for cars because they couldn't sell enough cars. Because people weren't having 5 children, they were having 1 child or 0. So there is no demand for new cars. So the factory closes. The people that were still living there lost their jobs. There was nothing else there, because if there's no growing population, there's also no need for new services. And it all goes down from there. So we saw the ghost towns, but another very clear signal that we're dealing with underpopulation and the effects of the low birth rates are the empty malls, the empty shops, the abandoned cities, inner cities, where there's only a few restaurants left for the very few people that are still working there maybe. But out of that, we all know, and you can see, there's also many videos on YouTube where they show abandoned malls, shopping malls, abandoned shopping centers, streets, downtown, empty. No more shops, nothing to do there. This is also an effect of low birth rates. And I know what you're going to say. No, it's online shopping. Online shopping has destroyed physical shops. Let me tell you, that's totally not the case. Because if you go luxury shopping, where do you go? You go to buy a Rolex, not that I support any of that, but I'm a normie today. I'm talking like a normie, don't get me wrong. But if you want to buy a Rolex, there is a physical shop. There is staff to support you, to help you. Why? Because physical shopping is the elite form of shopping. The only things that people buy online is mostly useless crap. If you go to AliExpress and etc., most things that people order there is just things that they didn't need. And they go on the site, they heard about it and say, oh nice, for 10 bucks I can get all this crap. And they're lured in to buy this because they're not so smart. And they're lured in there because it's cheap and they think it satisfies their dopamine. But online shopping is not disrupting physical shopping. Because if I want to buy something, I want to see it with my eyes. And I mean if I buy something of quality. If I buy something of quality, I want to feel, touch, look at it. I want to have the staff instruct me, inform me, explain everything. I want to have questions. They can advise me. This is not you can find online. Online is just if you maybe find something cheap, you order it, and then it's also messy because nowadays with all these delivery services, they're quite horrible, and packages get damaged. It's really a low quality of shopping, of doing business also. But here comes the thing, because if the birth rates are high enough, then the economy grows, people will have more to spend, and their living costs will be lower because they make more money, so they will spend more. And like I say, the elite form of shopping is physical. People enjoy buying good quality goods, and then in a physical way. They want this experience. They want to buy this expensive coffee machine. Again, like I said, I'm a normie today. I'm talking from a normie perspective, from your perspective as Americans. But you want to do a shopping on a quality level, because if you have the money to spend, you're not going to order a $10 coffee machine from AliExpress. No, you want to buy the $500 machine, and you will do a physical transaction. You want to go to the shop, and even then later they can deliver it at your house with their own private delivery service. But you want to do a physical visit in the store, and this all comes down, because now we're talking about coffee machines, but this all comes down to birth rates that are too low. Because now shopping is low quality. It's all garbage from China, because that's the only thing that people now can afford. Low quality garbage, and that's why physical shops are closing. Because there's not enough people to buy quality goods. The economy is shrinking, and yes, sure, there's inflation, but they do that because the birth rates are too low. If the birth rates will be high, the economy will grow faster, and they wouldn't have to print money. So it all comes down to decreasing birth rates. And these empty shops, even if, let's say, online shopping was really superior, then still shops wouldn't have to close. But because there's always a small part of the population that wants to do things physical. For example, the same now with vinyl. There are people, even though there's online services for music, and the majority of people are using them, there's still some people that love vinyl, and this is even growing. You see the need for physical. And if your population is 50 million, and maybe 1% likes vinyl, that's a whole different market than if you have 250 million. Because then this 1% is a much broader market, much larger. So a growing population means also growing of smaller markets, of niche markets. And that is, for example, if physical shopping was really inferior. But it will always be a niche market. Still people are riding horses today. It's a niche market, but it is a still existing market. But if the niche is very small, because the population in general is very small, of course, there's no need for a lot of niche market shops like vinyl shops. But if the population is growing, then also the niche markets will grow. So there will be more vinyl shops because the demand will increase. So you can see that ghost towns, ghost malls, empty shopping centers is all derived back to low birth rates. Birth rates that are too low. That's why the United States are dying. Eventually, the only solution is of course to live more traditional and natural. And even if you have a solution between civilization and nature, then we should look more at a Amish, Mennonite-like situation where based on families, family life, focus on having large families, 4 or 5 children. Without that, the United States will be gone. It will increase, the birth rates will go lower and lower and lower and lower. Again, the people that were born previous of the baby boomers, they come mostly from families of 10, 12 children. The baby boomers mostly from families with 4 or 5 children. Then the generation after that, mostly 2 children. And now it's mostly 1 or 0. That is the reason why the United States is disappearing. So that was it for today from Riga, Latvia. I say thank you for watching. See you next time.